Hi, this is Jackie with Panama Relocation Tours. Thank you for joining us for our Move to Panama Q&A live stream. This live stream is all about you getting answers to your questions about moving to and living in Panama. We've got quite a few people have already joined us over in our chat window. I see more people are coming in right now, so I'm going to make just a few announcements before we get started. For those of you that are new to our channel, thank you so much for being here. My name is Jackie Lang, the owner of Panama Relocation Tours. Since 2010, we've been helping people move to Panama the right way. We do that with our all-inclusive 6-day, 7-night Panama Relocation Tours. We also offer private tours throughout the country, and we have a home study course called our Online Panama Relocation Guide. You can get information about all of those things on our website at PanamaRelocationTours.com. Right here, PanamaRelocationTours.com. While you're there, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our newsletter, and we'll send you 15 free lessons about moving to and living in Panama. I have one other real quick announcement to make. Two real quick announcements to make, and then also to get started with your questions. The first announcement is that once I tell you, you can start asking questions. I'm not going to be able to click on your name and pop you up on the screen so that we can see you. Instead, you're going to have to type your question into the chat window, and you have to put 3 question marks in front of it so I can identify it as a question, because there's a lot of conversation going on over there that has nothing to do with a question for me. It's kind of our family reunion every Saturday when we do these live streams. Also, just to warn you that sometimes the questions are coming in so fast that they scroll up off the screen before I can click on it or before I can get to it. So you might have to type your question in a couple of times to bring it to my attention. Please hold off on your questions until I tell you to ask questions. One other quick announcement to make. Normally we do our live streams on Saturday, but this Thursday on the 30th of January, at the same time at 5 o'clock Central, 6 Eastern, 4 Mountain, 3 Pacific, we have a very special live stream with the owner of the medical billing company that I told you that I've been working on 4 years to get this to come to Panama, so that you can show your Medicare Advantage card or other Blue Cross Blue Shield or other U.S. insurance. You can just show your card at the hospital and you don't have to prepay. It used to be you had to prepay everything and then file a claim. But finally, I have it here in Panama, so you don't have to do that. So I've invited the owner of the medical billing company to join me on Thursday to explain how it works, what happens, do you need to pre-register, which hospitals are accepting this currently, and which hospitals will soon be accepting it. And of course, there'll be time for your questions, because I know you'll have many, many questions about how to use Medicare Advantage and other U.S. insurances here in Panama. So that's on the 30th of January. I would encourage everybody to go to our YouTube channel, and it's right here, youtube.com/Panama Relocation Tours. And if you click on the little tab that says live, there's one that says no prepay Medicare Advantage. Go ahead and pre-register for that. Just, all it's going to do is set a reminder. We don't take your email or anything. It's just going to set a reminder so you don't forget about it. Of course, I'll send out an email about it either the day before or the morning of the live stream to remind you about it also. So now I'm getting ready to start answering your questions. By the way, that's Panama City in the scene right behind me. Those of you wondering, what is that city? That beautiful city is Panama City. Many people that come here the very first time, they're shocked to see so many skyscrapers in Panama City and how modern it looks. And not all parts of Panama City are modern, but many parts of Panama City are very, very modern, and people are very surprised to see that. So now I'm going to start taking your questions. So this is how it works. You're going to have to type your question into the chat window and put 3 question marks in front of it. And when you do, I'll pop it up on the screen and I'll answer your question. So first question I see here is what pre-existing medical conditions might preclude you from receiving a health certificate. So you do have to get a health certificate to be able to get a residency visa, but right now there are no restrictions on pre-existing conditions that would prevent you from getting a health certificate for getting a visa. Now, when it comes to getting insurance in Panama, your pre-existing conditions, they will exclude any pre-existing conditions. We'll have more information about that on Thursday, so make sure and join it. Next question here from Kevin. Is Panama experiencing much inflation? Panama's had just a very little bit of inflation. Prices have not gone up very much. I'm still paying $1.65 for a dozen eggs. You know, the price of pineapples and many things that are grown here in Panama are the same. What you do see an increase in prices is, or anything that was imported from North America, all imports are 20% or more than they were just a year ago. But things that were grown locally or produced locally here in Panama, no changes in the prices. And that's a good reason to buy local instead of imported items. So Paul wants to know, do I need to go to Panama City to finalize my visa, or can it all be done in David? Everything to do with getting your residency visa, your temporary visa, and your permanent visa can all happen in David. The only thing you'll have to go to Panama City for is your national ID card, also called a SEDula. You'll have to go there to apply for it just for one day. Literally, you can fly in the morning, fly back in the afternoon, or take the bus there. And then they will deliver it to Western Panama, to Chiriquí province. So Mark wants to know, is it common to haggle mid or long-term rental rates? It's very common to negotiate rental rates. You know, in some markets, there's not very many rentals, so negotiating won't get you very much. I can tell you that, you know, if you say, well, I'll sign a 12-month lease or sign an 18-month lease, if you'll lower the price to this much, then that will very often get you a little bit off of the rent. If you're in a market where there's a lot of rentals, like Panama City, then you're going to have much more negotiating power than you will in places where there's less rentals. Whoops, clicked on the wrong thing. So Joanne wants to know, do expat renters carry renter's insurance? I know a few expats that get renter's insurance, but most people don't even bother with it. It's only like, I think, $100 a year to get it, but there's a $500 deductible, so it's just really not hardly worth it. An author wants to know, whoops, that wasn't a question, sorry. I clicked on the wrong one. So 412C says the military VA letter is a document good, or would I need to get the document certified or apostilled? You would have to get your income verification letter from the VA if you're talking about that, like your disability or your retirement. That has to be either apostilled or authenticated. It can be authenticated at the Panama consulate, or it can be apostilled sometimes at your state, Secretary of State. Otherwise, you'd have to take it to or send it off to the State Department, the federal State Department. And John wants to know, if you have a heart attack, Medicare Advantage covers emergency room, but does it also cover if the person is moved into hospital bed? Yes, Medicare Advantage is going to cover the emergency room. It's going to cover hospitalization, emergency surgery, all of those things that are related to whatever got you into the emergency room in the first place. Is there one area that uses more pesticides than another in vegetables? There is one area that uses more pesticides than any place else, and that's called Cerro Punta. It's a little bit north of Volcan in far western Panama and Chiriquí province. So Cerro Punta is where they use quite a bit of pesticides. Personally, I avoid buying any vegetables that were grown in Cerro Punta. Some people, you know, they're fine with soaking them in some wash or getting them cleaned really well and using them anyway. Prentice says, how are the Panamanians feeling about the canal in Panama? The Panamanians, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about it. We really prefer to leave politics out of these live streams and conversations. But the Panamanians, some Panamanians saying they hope Trump does take it, because then maybe some of the money will actually be spent in Panama and Panamanians. Other ones are saying, over my dead body, is that going to happen? So there's mixed reviews, just like there is with everything in politics. And Antonio says, how much advance notice for 1 or 2 day private tour and the cost? So private tour depends on where you're going to do the private tour. The cost is between $200, $250, maybe $300. It just depends on the itinerary. We have multiple private tour guides in every single area. So usually a 1 week notice is all that you need to do. And Monique in London says, if you wanted to integrate with the locals, what type of hobbies do the Panamanians enjoy in Boquete and David? A lot of them enjoy gardening. I know a lot of my Panamanian neighbors, they love to plant flowers and grow vegetables and things like that. So gardening would definitely be a hobby to get involved in. And Dee wants to know, will you have another video coming up soon on living in Volcan? We have about 5 new videos that are coming up soon. One of them does include living in Volcan. If I'm not ready to apply for my visa, how long must I leave the country after staying 180 days before I can return? So you can, if you're from North America, some countries only get 30 days. But if you're from the United States or Canada, you can stay in Panama as a tourist for 180 days. Keep in mind, you can only drive the first 90 days that you're in country. Then you have to leave for at least 30 days before you can come back. And when you do come back, there's no guarantee that immigration is going to give you another 180 days. Just last week, somebody was given 2 weeks when they came back a second time. So there's no guarantee you can stay longer. Does Boquete have rentals for large families or family of 8? They do have rentals. I know a family of 8. They just got a 6-bedroom, 7-bathroom house in that area in Boquete. So yes, there are some larger homes. Please discuss bringing pets to Panama. So we have a really good article on our website, and it's actually called Bringing Pets. So if you go to PanamaRelocationTours.com, in the upper right-hand corner, search Bringing Pets to Panama. We have an article with step-by-step instructions on the things that you have to do to get your pet here. Timothy wants to know, how are the storage facilities in Panama, specifically Boquete? So in Boquete, a little bit south of Boquete, there's a place called Cherokee Storage, and it's basically just some 20-foot shipping containers where you can store things, but they don't have climate controlled in Boquete. They do have some climate controlled in David, but not in Boquete. See if I can get to this one that passed up. If I use a broker to buy a car in Panama City, so that when I arrive from the U.S., he can pick us up at the airport in that car, will he also take care of the title, plates, and insurance? Normally, the car broker is going to take care of all of that, but you need to ask the car broker what all is included in his fee and just verify that that is included. Tina says, does the new hospital in Pononomi carry Medicare Advantage? It will not. The new hospital in Pononomi is a public hospital. None of the public hospitals will take a Medicare Advantage or any other kind of insurance. Life Lesson says, I'm afraid of bugs and critters. Do landlords do spraying for them in Boquete? I can tell you that most landlords are not going to do exterminating of the property. That's going to be something you're going to have to take on yourself. Whenever I have my property exterminated, which isn't very often, it's $30 for them to come and take care of everything. So it's not a big deal. So once again, if anybody has a question for me, you're going to have to type it into the chat window and put 3 question marks in front of it. Otherwise, I'll think you're just having a conversation with somebody over in the chat window and it's not a question for me. So 412C says the average cost of a couple pensionado visa from the lawyers reading online is about $4,000. Is that across the board? You're using the wrong lawyer if you're paying that much money. If you were to use the immigration attorneys that we recommend in our online Panama relocation guide, it would be about half that much. So once again, that online Panama relocation guide, let me find it up here. So you go to our website at Panama Relocation Tours, click in online guide, read about it right there. But it pays for itself in the savings that you're going to have from immigration attorneys and so many other things that it will save you money. Betty says, what documents besides Social Security and income verification do I need to have notarized for the visa for the Panama Embassy? So you're going to have your income verification from Social Security. You're also going to need an FBI criminal report. That's a national criminal report. So you're going to need to have those two things, and they both have to be authenticated, not notarized, but authenticated by the Panama Embassy. Can you talk about visa related to opening a company? So there's several different visas that are related to opening a company. One is a Friendly Nation visa, and we have an article on our website that says 4 ways to get the Friendly Nation visa. It's option number 4. What you do have to do is set up a special corporation. You can't just use any corporation. It's a special corporation, and you do have to pay yourself at least $1,000 a month for the first 9 months. You also have to pay into Social Security, which I think is $220 a year that you have to pay into Social Security. That number might be wrong. You need to check with an immigration attorney. So it takes about 10 days to get that visa. It's quick and easy to get that visa. If you don't qualify for a pensionado visa, that's the most affordable option. Krista wants to know, is there an expiration date on the good standing letter from the bank? Yes, the good standing letter from the bank cannot be more than 30 days owed whenever you're opening up your bank account. John wants to know if it's true that we only need 1 month to collect our pensionado visa discounts and get them apostilled in the U.S. How soon before we leave the U.S.? So I'm not really understanding the question exactly, but I think I'm interpreting it that whenever you apply for a residency visa, the documents, your income verification, FBI report, marriage certificate, all those kind of things cannot be more than 6 months old. And ideally, you send them to your attorney about a month in advance so everything can be translated into Spanish before you ever even get here. It can also be re-authenticated by the Ministry of Foreign Relations before you even arrive. So I would say that you need to start getting those documents about 2 or 3 months before you plan to come to Panama to meet with an attorney. You should contact the attorney 2 or 3 or 4 months before you plan to get a visa, so you can go ahead and set up an appointment. They'll give you a list of documents that you need. Make sure you get an itemized list of what all their fees are going to be, so that you have that also. Please estimate the numbers of expats in the country, and is it getting too late to make the move, and are prices in general getting more expensive? Larry, in some places prices are actually going down because there's just an excess of rental properties. Panama City is one of those places, but there's other places that prices are going down. Nobody knows for sure how many expats are in the country. I had a meeting with the U.S. Embassy the other day, and they said there's only I think 120,000 people are registered in the STEP program at the U.S. Embassy. But of course, everybody's not registered. They don't want their name on a government list. So nobody knows for sure how many people are here. I can tell you that perhaps one town might have a whole lot of expats, but you go to a town that's 10 or 15 minutes away and you don't see any expats at all. So it's not like it's too late, the door's closing, there's not room for any more. There's always room for more. It just may not be right in the place you wanted to move to. So let's see. This is from Yvonne. Just joined. Is there a length of time you have to leave before returning after 180 days? You have to leave for at least 30 days before you can come back. And when you come back, there's no guarantee that you're going to get another 180 days. I mentioned it earlier, just last week, they had left for 180. They were in town in Panama for 180 days. They left for 30 days. They came back. They were there for another 180 days. They left for 30 days. They came back and they said, this time you only get 2 weeks. So you might not get that. There's no guarantee you'll get another 180 days. Gary wants to know, what is the best way to pay rent? So the very best way to pay rent is if you have a Panama bank account and you have money in that bank account, because your landlord's going to give you their bank account number at their bank. So if you have a Panama bank account, you can move money from your bank account to the landlord's bank account just like that, and it doesn't cost a penny. And Ernie says, you say that getting a rental word of mouth is the best way. Any suggestions in finding such mouths? Yes, you have to be in town. You have to be in town. If you're in Germany and you're looking for a rental in Panama City, you're not going to get word of mouth, but you have to be in town, talking to people at restaurants, little expat get-togethers that happen all the time. So you have to be boots on the ground in Panama to find the best rentals. Is it reasonable to drive to Panama from Canada when moving down? I know quite a few people are driving down to Panama right now because they want to bring their big pets with them and some of their things and their car, and it would cost a fortune to do all that stuff. We have 2 YouTube videos that we interviewed some people that drove down last year in 2024. So if you look on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Panama Relocation Tours. There's 2 interviews. One is 2 guys that drove down, and I think they did it in 7 days, and they were bringing a couple of dogs. Another one is 2 women, and they decided to take a leisurely trip of about 8 weeks to drive from the United States to Panama because they wanted to go explore around Mexico also. So you get the perspective from both of them. And see if I can click on this one. Leah says, do you know how much would a 6-bedroom apartment cost in Boquete? First of all, it wouldn't be an apartment. It would be a single family home. And I have no idea what it would cost. I know the people that recently got one, that it's either a 5 or 6 bedroom. I think they're paying $1,500. I'm pretty sure they're paying $1,500. What's a good standing letter or credit report? So it's a letter from your bank. But for you to open up a Panama bank account, they want a letter from the bank where you're currently doing banking that says you're a good client. So it's going to say, Going Rogue has had an account with us since 2012, and it's in good standing. That's all it needs to say. Just super simple. They just want someone to say that you're a good person. JK says, what bank's ATMs will allow dollars withdrawal than the $250 at most banks? If you're using a foreign debit card, the most you're going to be able to get is $250, and it costs about $6.50 to get that. So you want to make sure you're using a debit card that they will reimburse you for any foreign transaction fees like Charles Schwab does. Timo says, Will we meet you on the PRT tour? Tim and Jen, thanks for what you're doing coming in March. So you probably won't see me during the tour, but I usually have lunch or dinner with the tour group at least one day. So you'll get to meet me probably, not always, but probably for lunch or dinner for one day. Tim wants to know, I have my temporary visa and will be moving to Panama this summer and will be getting my permanent visa. Will I need to buy a round-trip plane ticket? You will not. Once you get your temporary visa, then you don't have to buy the round-trip ticket. You can buy a one-way ticket to Panama. Let's see, question over here. John says, before I leave the U.S. for Panama, if I employ a broker to buy a car in Panama City so that he can pick me up at the airport, I think you just asked that. How long before I leave the U.S. should I contact the car broker? They can usually find a car for you in less than a week, but it wouldn't hurt to let them know kind of what you're looking for, even 2 or 3 weeks in advance. But usually a week is more than enough. When we arrive for a visit this spring, our phones will be locked, so a SIM card will not work for us. Is public Wi-Fi available in Panama City and other areas? Public Wi-Fi is not going to be available unless you go into a restaurant. Then a lot of times the restaurants have some kind of a Wi-Fi. Of course, the hotel or Airbnb where you're staying, they're going to have Wi-Fi, but there's not going to be just anywhere that you'd have access to Wi-Fi. Can the 180-day stay be broken up? No. Once you come into Panama and stay one time, then you have to leave for 30 days before you can come back. Is the $250 withdrawal per day or per withdrawal? It's per withdrawal, and there's a limit of 2 per day. Can you explain if we have to create a corporation for the Friendly Nation visa if we're working from home for a company in the U.S.? So there's a lot of different visa options, and we have an article on our website called Other Permanent Visa Options. Look through that and see all the different kind of visas that are available. Setting up the corporation for a Friendly Nation visa is just one of them. It's quick and easy to get. So that may be the one that you have to get that would be the best fit. Unfortunately, the one that's called the digital nomad visa or the short stay visa, it's not really a very good option. It's quite expensive to get. You have to jump through a lot of hoops to get that visa, more than you do with the Friendly Nation visa. And then it's only good for 9 months. You can renew one time for another 9 months, and that's it. Then you have to leave the country. So if you want to live in Panama permanently, the Friendly Nation visa by setting up a corporation is a much better option. And Don wants to know, by the way, let me take a quick break. Time out, everybody. If you haven't already done so, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our videographer, Tobias, has been out for the last 4 days doing a lot of more video shoots. So in addition to the 2 or 3 that we already have that he's working on editing, we just have a lot more videos that are coming up soon. So if you want to be the very first person to know about new videos to come up or new live streams that are coming up, you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just take one little click to subscribe to it right now, please. And Don says, if you get the pensionado visa, do you maintain your driver's license in your home country or use the Panama driver's license when returning to the United States? It's a personal choice. For me, I got rid of my Texas driver's license because the first time I could renew it online, but the second time they wanted me to come into Texas to be able to renew my license, and I didn't want to have to do that all the time. So I just got rid of my Texas driver's license. I only have a Panama driver's license. But even when I go back to the United States, I can drive with a Panama driver's license for the first 90 days that I'm in the country. So that's good enough. Can you obtain health insurance with a pensionado visa if you're only in the country for 3 or 4 months a year? If you get the international health insurance, then you can get that. You can get Panama insurance. Also, some of the other Panama insurances like family medical plan, you could do that, but it really doesn't make sense. If you're only going to be in Panama for 3 or 4 months, I would recommend instead that you get traveler's insurance. Make sure you join us on the 30th of January for a special live stream that we're doing that's going to talk about using your travel insurance, U.S. insurance, Medicare Advantage here in Panama, and how you can do it without having to prepay. Diane wants to know, are organic vegetables available? They are available in some places some of the time, but not everywhere in Panama. So if organic vegetables are important to you, as they are to me, then you need to make sure and investigate that about the place that you're moving to. And Russ wants to know, how does credit cards and the use of credit differ from the way it works in Panama as opposed to the United States? So credit cards work completely different in Panama. If you open up a Panama bank account, they're going to give you a debit card that you can get access to cash at ATM machines, or you can use it to pay for your groceries or pay for your meal at a restaurant. But if you want to get a credit card, let's say you have a credit card and it has a $5,000 limit on it, what they're going to do is they're going to put a hold on $7,000 of the money in your bank account. You can't touch that money. So the credit card that you get is going to be, they hold the money in your bank account as collateral. So you're never going to be able to get a credit card that's for, even if you have $50,000 in your account, they're probably only going to give you a credit card for $5,000, maybe $7,000, and they're going to put hold on that much money. So I wouldn't advise getting a credit card in Panama. Is there a good way to figure out what a fair cab rate will be, so not having to pay a gringo rate? Yes, a good way is to use Uber. If you go to Uber and you say, I want to go from here to here on an Uber, it's going to show you what that rate's going to be. That's about what the cab rate should be also. And if they're charging more than that, then they're charging too much. Or just use Uber instead of a taxi. Use Uber. There's also an app called InDrive, INDRIVE. Same thing. It's going to show you to go from here to here. This is what the rate is. The difference is that with Uber, they're going to charge your credit card. With InDrive, you negotiate the rate and then you have to pay cash to the driver. But it's always going to be cheaper than a taxi. Either one of those will be cheaper than a taxi. BL, are there good veterinarians in Volcan and Panama? I have an excellent vet that I use in Boquete. I've never used a vet in Volcan or in Panama, but I assume that there are very good vets there also. And many of the vets in Panama make house calls. They charge $30 to make a house call. Sheila says, what's the minimum investment required for the qualified investor visa? So the minimum investment right now in real estate is $300,000. If you wanted to do a CD, it's more, or a stock market, it's like $750,000, $500,000 for a CD. But if you did the qualified investor visa, or also called the golden visa, it's $300,000 in real estate. You could also do $200,000 in real estate if you did the friendly nation visa. So the difference is, with the qualified investor visa, you get your visa within 30 days. With the friendly nation visa, you get your permanent visa within 2 years. And, oops, wrong one again. These things are scrolling up there. So for those of you that might have joined us a little bit late, if you have a question for me, you have to type it in the chat window and put in 3 question marks in front of it. Then I'll pop it up on the screen and I'll answer the question. So Russ says, do you have to be a citizen to get married in Panama? What's the process for getting married? You don't have to be a citizen. You can be from any country and come to Panama and get married. The cheap and easy way is to get married at a notary. Costs $50. It does take about 7 business days for your marriage certificate to be registered in the public registry. Then after that, you can get your visa as a married couple. Do the hotel discounts for retirees also apply to Airbnb? They do not apply to Airbnb. The pensionado discounts only apply to a registered hotel. And you have to book it directly with the hotel. If you book it on Expedia or Bookings or something like that, you're not going to get a discount. You have to book directly with the hotel. Call them up and book it. John says, if you get the pensionado visa, do you still file U.S. taxes? If you're a U.S. citizen, you're still required to pay taxes on your worldwide income. That includes the interest that you earn on the bank in Panama. and you still have to file a tax return every single year. Unfortunately, there's no way to get out of that situation unless you renounce your citizenship. Tina wants to know, how long can your belongings be in storage once shipped, or do they need to be placed in another storage building until permanent housing is found? You'd have to ask the moving company. Many moving companies have some large, the ones that we recommend in our online guide, they have some large warehouses where they can store your things for up to 6 months if you want to. So you don't have to rush right into finding something. And Kevin says, please explain more about the medical requirement for a visa. So for getting a visa, you're required to have a health certificate. Very often, your immigration attorney will ask you a couple of questions. Do you have any diseases that could be transmitted to someone? And if you say no, then they will just call up the doctor and say, issue the health certificate, everything's okay. You might not even ever meet with a doctor. Or you might meet with the doctor. Every situation's a little bit different. But you do have to have a health certificate that says you're healthy enough to be moving to Panama. We soon came back to to Panama to pick up our permanent visa. Can we then still drive a rental car with our Australian license? No. Once you get your temporary visa, you can no longer drive with your foreign license at all. Actually, even before you get your temporary visa, as soon as they put a stamp in your passport that says this person's applying for a visa, then you can no longer drive with your Australian license. What you're going to have to do is take your Australian license to the Australian Embassy in Panama City, get it authenticated there, and then your attorney can help you go over to the Ministry of Foreign Relations and get it re-authenticated, and then you can get your go in to get your Panama driver's license. Diane says, we're coming to Boca in May to do some private tours, meeting with a lawyer, and also Jaime about storage facilities. What other things would you recommend checking out? So if you look in our online Panama relocation guide, we have a section at the very bottom called self-guided tours. And you just click on the city that you're interested in, like Boca. It has recommendations on where to stay, things to do, when things are happening, how to get there. So make sure and check out the self-guided tour section in the online guide. And Yvonne says, about how much does a pallet cost for shipping? It depends on where you're shipping it from, and it depends on if you're shipping it door to door using an international mover, or if you're having the pallet first sent to Florida and then you're having it sent to Panama using a mail forwarding service. That cost can be 50% less. So there's a lot of different variables, and I can't give you a price. If you look in our online Panama relocation guide about movers, we have a whole section on movers. You'll see some international movers and mail forwarding pallet movers. Just contact them and tell them where you are, how many totes you have in the pallet, and then they can give you an estimate on what the price is going to be. How does one pay themselves $1,000 a month with the S corporation option? So you can't use an S corporation for the Friendly Nation visa. For the Friendly Nation visa, you have to use a special corporation, a Panama corporation. You can't use a corporation from another country. We would enter with our German passport. The visa is based on our Australian citizenship. So it doesn't matter. Once you get a Panama visa, then you have to get your Panama driver's license. You can't drive. And if you're entering with a German passport, they're going to want to see a German driver's license. But if you only have Australian driver's license, they're going to say, what's this? And then they're going to ask a lot of questions, and they could impound your car if you're driving it without a Panama driver's license. So next question from Lynn, can you get a Panama driver's license without having a visa? You cannot. You can't get a driver's license until you have a visa. John wants to know, is it effective to contact realtors 1 to 3 weeks before we leave the U.S. for Boquete, so when we arrive, they'll have something for us to look at? It's way too soon. Contact the real estate agent about 3 days before you're going to arrive. If you contact them 2 weeks before you arrive, all those properties are already gone. They're completely gone. If you contact them 7 days before you're going to arrive, those will be gone by the time you get to Boquete. So literally 2 or 3 days before you're going to arrive, you should contact the real estate agents. And I recommend you contact the agents that we recommend in the online Panama relocation guide. We know they're honest. They're not going to do net listings. And we haven't had complaints about them like some of the other agents. And when purchasing housing, what is the going down payment? The going down payment is at least 30%. For some banks, request 40% down. We really recommend that you rent for at least a year in the area that you're thinking about moving to before you even consider buying any real estate. To make sure you like Panama, make sure you like that area. Also, very important, make sure you get your permanent visa before you buy real estate. The reason I say that is we've had some people that they were approved for a temporary visa, but then their permanent visa was denied and they were told they had to leave the country. So that would be a bad situation if you owned real estate and you couldn't live in the country. So please wait till you get your permanent visa before you buy real estate. Dina says, can you obtain the good standing U.S. bank letter electronically while you're in Panama? Most banks will accept one that's electronic. It does have to be signed by a real person. It can't just say customer service. So make sure that it says, who signed it, and perhaps ask them to also send you a copy of their business card. And Don wants to know, do Panama banks have security like FDIC? They do not. The way that you have security in Panama is you don't put all of your eggs in one basket. You put some money over in this bank and some money over in that bank. And then if you hear rumblings that there's a problem with one bank, with a click of a mouse, you can move the money to a different bank quick and easy. So it's always a good idea to have more than one, an account at more than one bank. James says, we have apostilled marriage certificates. Do we also need apostilled birth certificate? You don't need a birth certificate. Adults don't need a birth certificate. Panama only requires a birth certificate for minors, so you don't have to worry about that. Have you been to Los Gatos de Guaca? Do you know if it's worth visiting when I'm there? So I've been to Guaca. I don't know if it's the same thing. Yeah. So I've been to Guaca. I don't think it's that worth visiting, but some people love it. I'm a licensed professional counselor. Would I be able to get licensed in Panama? You would not be able to practice in Panama at all, because a counselor, there's a lot of protected professions in Panama. Being a counselor is a protected profession. Only a Panamanian can practice as a counselor in Panama. If you go to our website at Panama Relocation Tours, there is a visa called the professional visa, which you can get if you have a degree in some profession that is not a protected profession in Panama. In that article about that visa that you can get, there's a link to all the different protected professions that you can read about. I forgot to get my drink of water before I started this live stream. Are most banks in Panama paying 6% interest a year on a savings account? No. Most banks in Panama are paying 2 to 3%, sometimes 3.5% on a special savings account called an intracuenta account. Just your regular savings account might only get 1.5%, but you can move money over to an intracuenta account that gets 2.5 to 3.5%. To get in that 6% range, you're going to have to get a CD. And Ralph wants to know, are there English-speaking movie theaters in Boquete? There isn't any movie theaters in Boquete at all. But if you drive down to David, to Federal Mall, there's a beautiful movie theater there that has movies in English or Spanish. There's also a movie theater in closer to downtown David that has movies in English or Spanish. And Russ has another question. Can you re-comment on Spanish classes if not online? What about someone in Panama? So there's all kinds of Spanish classes. You can do online Spanish classes with someone in Panama. They have Spanish classes in little groups. When I did my Spanish classes, I had a private tutor that came to my house, and it was $10 for 1 hour is what I paid. Now, I don't know what the costs are now for a Spanish class. Are there any hidden costs or taxes I should know about? I'm not sure in reference to what. So give me a little bit more information. What is the best cell phone option in Boquete, David, and Boca del Toro? In my opinion, the best cell phone option is the company called Tigo, Tigo. They have the best coverage over all of Panama. Jackie, please talk about having an online shop and your clients live in Panama. Who do they pay the takes? So you're going to have to rephrase that into a little bit better question. If you're talking about having some kind of an online business, we do have a free ebook. It's on our website, and if you do a search at the top that says Fund, F-U-N-D, Your Freedom Overseas, it has about 200 different recommendations on things that you can do to earn money online while you're living in Panama. So you're not working in Panama, you don't need a work permit, but it's got a lot of different ways, including setting up an online shop or online business. So make sure you check out on our website, get the free ebook, absolutely free, and it's called Fund, F-U-N-D, yourfreedomoverseas.com. Let me type it in real quick into a banner. Okay, pop it up here real quick so you can write it down. So Fund Your Freedom Overseas. That's the name of the ebook that's free on our website. And how long after receiving your permanent visa can you get your SEDula? So you have to, once you get the resolution that your permanent visa is ready, and then you pick up your permanent visa, usually in the next day, you can, or maybe two, you can go get your SEDula. If you get it on Friday afternoon, you wouldn't be able to go until Monday, obviously, to get your SEDula. So you can get it right away. However, this is how it works with your SEDula. You go to the electoral tribunal in Panama City to apply for the SEDula, but you don't get it right away. You're not going to get it for another 7 days. If you're already living in Panama, they'll send it to the town that you live in. So if you live in Chitre, they'll send it to Chitre, and you go to the electoral tribunal in Chitre to pick up your SEDula. If you're in Panama City, you go back to the same place to pick up your SEDula about 7 business days after you do the application. And another question here. Can we work as a temporary consultant for the U.S. or Canadian organizations? If you worked at one of the embassies, not for an organization like NGO or something like that, you absolutely cannot do that. But if you work for the U.S. Embassy or the Canadian Embassy, if they had some kind of a need for a temporary consultant and you were qualified for it, then I think you would probably be able to do it for an embassy, but not for any other kind of an organization. That's a really good question for your immigration attorney, because consultant is considered a protected profession, as is a counselor. The previous question about the amount of down payment made me think, what is customary for earnest money deposit with an offer? So whenever you make the earnest money deposit for the offer, what is customary is 5%, that you pay 5% to the seller, and it's not held in escrow. It's paid directly to the seller. The reason it's 5% is because the seller has to pay the capital gains tax before it can even go to closing. So that's funding them being able to pay that. Can you explain about the mail or lack thereof? So there's not going to ever be mail coming to your house in Panama or your apartment in Panama. You have to set up an account. Well, if it's in-country mail, you're going to use a courier service like Felice Chevalier or Uno Express, and you can send a package from one place to another place, and you can send mail in country. If you're talking about mail coming in from a different country into Panama, you're going to have to use a mail forwarding service. And instead of me going into a lot of detail about it here, it would be much better if you read an article on my website. If you go to PanamaRelocationTours.com, upper right-hand corner, type in Amazon, and it'll have an article about how you work with a mail forwarding company to get your Amazon orders and any mail coming into Panama. It'll go to their office. They'll send you an email when it comes in, and then you just go pick it up. I've heard that the signature requirement makes opening a bank account difficult. Is that true? That is true, that your signature has to match the signature in your passport exactly. And you might have to sign it 10 times before they're going to accept it. Even when I went to go renew my SEDula last October, I went to go renew my SEDula. I had to sign 6 times before they would accept my signature. Also, they'll have this little bitty box, and everything has to be inside of the box, and nothing can touch the outside or the lines. You see, it all has to be all inside. All these little crazy little rules that they have in Panama. Should I start learning Spanish before I move, or easier learning once I'm living there? I would suggest you start learning Spanish now. You can use something called Duolingo, Duolingo. It's free. And you can say, I'm going to study Spanish for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, and just get familiar with hearing it and speaking those words so that whenever you get here, it's going to be so much easier. Diane wants to know, do most people do home inspections when they buy? A lot of people surprisingly do not do a home inspection. And I'm surprised that they don't, but they don't do a home inspection. I did. Before I bought my property, I had a home inspection done, and I discovered a couple of things. First of all, the septic tank was not, it wasn't a good septic tank. It had to be completely replaced. The other thing I discovered when my attorney did a title search on the property is that the house that I had been living in never did have a certificate of occupancy issued, never had the final inspection after it was built. So you definitely want to do a title search, and I would recommend doing a home inspection too, because there's all kinds of things they could find out. Well, which hospitals are cooperating with the new Medicare project you got for us? So if you join us for a live stream on the 30th of January, that's this Thursday, we're going to have information about the hospitals, Medicare Advantage. It's not Medicare, Medicare Advantage and other U.S. insurances that are accepted. So I'm going to wait and talk about that this coming Thursday. Are there English-speaking doctors or hospitals in case of an emergency? So not everywhere. If you go to a private hospital in the emergency room, there's a good chance you're going to have a doctor that speaks English there. If you go to a public hospital with an emergency, there's a good chance that the doctor will not speak English. So you may want to take a translator with you. There may be a nurse that's available, or you might be stuck with using Google Translate, which is not a good situation if you're in the middle of a heart attack. Is it easy to get a permit to sell items at the local market? It's not. You have to have the right kind of visa. So you have to get a visa that allows you to get a work permit. A foreigner cannot sell any products or services, even at the local market, unless they have a work permit. And it takes, I know someone, they've been working on it for 12 months to get a work permit and they don't have it yet. I don't know other people that they applied for their work permit and they got it in 6 months. So you're not going to get it right away, that's for sure. Also, until you have your permanent visa, whichever visa you applied for, until you have your permanent visa, you may have a hard time getting a work permit. Are the public school educators a protected profession? No, education is not a protected profession. Reminder, on our website, we have an article about the professional visa, and it has a list of all the protected professions there. Does the tour visit Panama? We do go to Panama during the tour. We usually see some rentals there and at least one shopping center over there. Sometimes we have lunch with or dinner with expats that live in Panama. Mary says, I think the guide mentions it's best to get a Panama phone because it's easier for people to contact you on WhatsApp if you have a Panama number. Why is that? Because many Panamanians, if you contact them with WhatsApp on your US or your Canadian or your European phone, they're going to freak out and say, oh no, this person's going to only speak English and I might not be able to communicate with them. So they might not even answer the phone. An attorney will, but some of the other people will not. The other thing, of course, with WhatsApp, and you can always go over to Google Translate. You can type everything, translate it, then put it in as a text message in Spanish. But they're going to be less likely to answer the phone or communicate with a foreign phone as they are with a Panamanian phone. Another question from Russ, is there any recommended time to move to Panama after the tour? Does it depend on what the individual wants to do? So this is my recommendation. After the tour, most people, a lot of people move to Panama within 6 months after they come on a Panama relocation tour. However, you need to know that in January, February, and March, that's considered high season here in Panama. And that's when all the snowbirds come down from Canada. So they suck up all the rental properties. There's not hardly any inventory in the Coronado area, Gorgona, San Carlos, Boquete, Volcan. A lot of the inventory, there's just not hardly any rentals in January, February, and March. So if you wait, if you don't come during those months, if you come at a different time, you'll have so much more inventory available. The prices will be cheaper, and it's a better time to come. Lynn wants to know, question was not clear. Can I continue to work on contract for translation or online training for a U.S. or Canadian company? Yes. So if you're working for a U.S. or Canadian company, you can continue to do that online and you don't need a work permit in Panama. It's only if you're selling products or services in Panama that you need a work permit. But if you're not selling, if you're working for a company outside of Panama, then you can do that with no problem. You still need a residency visa to be able to live in Panama, but you don't need a work permit. Do I need permanent citizenship or work permit before opening a small business? You don't need citizenship before you open up a small business, but you do need a work permit, because even if you own your own business, you're not allowed to work in it unless you have a work permit if you're a foreigner, but you don't need citizenship. John says, if I buy a car in Panama City and get the plates there but live in Boquete, do I have to go back to Panama City each year to renew the plates for registration? Either you have to go back or you can hire one of our fixers to take care of that registration for you. More importantly, if you buy a car in Panama City and it's registered in Panama City, but you're going to be living in Boquete, you probably want to get the registration changed to Dolega, which is just a little bit south of Boquete, and then it's just a 10-minute drive to go down there to do the re-registration. You can only change the registration in the month that your license plate expires, so keep that in mind. And the fixers can help you change that registration from Panama City over to Dolega with no problem. So I'm going to take one more question, or just a couple more questions. Does Panama have dialysis centers for people that need multiple treatments weekly? If so, does local insurance cover this? So Panama does have a lot of dialysis centers. Surprisingly, there's a high rate of diabetes in Panama, and for many people that have diabetes, it causes their kidneys to fail, so they need dialysis. However, there's no insurance that's going to cover that. No insurance, or even your Medicare Advantage isn't going to cover it. Most insurance is not going to cover that, so you'd have to pay out of pocket. And the signature at the bank has to match the signature in your passport. The signature on your SEDula should also match the signature in your passport. Everything goes back to your passport. Mavis wants to know, can you get your documentation authenticated before Social Security starts? You could, but you wouldn't be able to use it because you can't apply for a residency visa until you're already collecting Social Security. You have to get at least one payment before you're going to be able to apply for a residency visa. And is it safe for a gay couple to visit or retire in Panama? Absolutely. You know, Panamanians and expats that live in Panama, they're very welcoming to everybody. They don't care if you're gay. All they care about is if you're a nice person. That's all they care about. So if you're a nice person, you're welcome in Panama. Same question as V, but I don't know what V's question. Oh, is it safe for a gay couple? I'm going to take one more question. Can you have a small business with a work permit if you have a if you're a pensionado visa holder? If you're a pensionado visa holder, you're going to have a very, very, very hard time getting a work permit. So you need to, if you want to have a small business, you need to get a Friendly Nation visa. I suggest the option number 4 in our article, where you set up a corporation that sets up a business, but not with a pensionado visa. The objective of the pensionado visa, it's for retirees. It's for people that are coming to Panama to retire. They don't want to work. They don't want to sell their little handicrafts that they make. They don't want to sell cookies that they made. It's for retirees only. So if you want to sell stuff in Panama, you need to get a different visa. So, I didn't even have a drink of water for this one. I hope you learned a lot. We had a lot of good questions. Now, I know that I didn't get to some of your questions. It's just impossible because with 570 people on the live stream, it's impossible to get to all of the questions that come in. If I didn't get to your question, please send an email to info@PanamaRelocationTours.com. Let me pop it up here real quick. info@PanamaRelocationTours.com. Just send an email. Whatever your question was, send it to that email. I probably won't get to it tonight, but I will get to it. Hopefully by tomorrow, I'll be able to answer your question then if I didn't get to it tonight. Or if you're a little bit shy about asking your question, you don't need to be shy. We're all friends here on our weekly Saturday live stream. Everybody hangs out together here every single Saturday. So this is your PRT family, the Panama Relocation Tour family. Don't be shy. But if you're too shy to ask your question, you can also just send an email to info@PanamaRelocationTours.com. I hope you all learned something, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be notified when our new videos come out. Yes, Jewel, I'm going to go get a drink of water, maybe even a drink of wine. Might be exactly what I need after this live stream. So thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I enjoyed answering all of your questions. Don't forget, I'm going to send out an email reminder, but don't forget that we have a special live stream on Thursday, the 30th of January, all about using Medicare Advantage and other U.S. insurances here in Panama without needing to prepay first. You just show your card. So you'll learn all about it on Thursday. Goodbye, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.